I want to do a podcast about films.
I'm not stopping you.
No, with you, you fool.
Oh, so you mean you want us to do a podcast about films?
Yes.
Well, why didn't you say that?
I did. I am.
Well, you can't say films. You need to say movies. It's a more broadly recognised term.
Yeah, don't worry about that now. Are you interested?
We can't just talk about films we like. That would be boring.
Okay, then what about films we don't like?
That sounds even more boring.
Okay, how about this? Films we disagree on.
Ah, intriguing. So one of us likes it, the other one doesn't. And we discuss our opinions on the film?
I think you mean movie.
Yeah, don't worry about that now.
But yeah, that's the gist of it.
All right, I'm in.
Great.
Could still be boring, though.
You're boring.
I don't see how that's relevant.
Should we do one now? Hello and welcome to Movie the Needle, a podcast where two complete amateurs haphazardly dissect a film that one of us likes and one, well, not so much. My name's Simon and I'm joined by my good friend Carl, and we'll be explaining our opposing viewpoints and seeing whether we can movie the needle for one another. This week, we are discussing the 1977 space opera and cultural phenomenon that is Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope. Hello, Carl. How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. How about you?
I am pretty excited because you've tempted me teased me, I should say, with possibly some liquid gold of some description.
Well, we're on our slippery slope, having started with a...
Well, no beer whatsoever, right?
Oh, that's right, yeah.
For the first few.
Yeah, we started
with the gateway drug that was a non-alcoholic Corona.
Yeah, I don't think that's how they market it.
The gateway drug. Yeah. They definitely should. That would be brilliant, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Kids.
You don't like drinking? Maybe this one's for you.
You'll learn. You'll learn. Corona.
Yeah.
Alcohol free. So speaking of non-alcoholic beer, though, before you reveal what you've brought for us today, I did have a bit of a non-alcoholic beer fail the other day. So as you know, I'm involved with a junior football club. A lot of football coaches, a lot of football guys involved in that. We had like a coaches meeting, right? I thought, I'll be nice. Everyone's driving there to this location that we were having at the cafe, and I was like, I'll buy 24 non-alcoholic Heinekens. That'll be nice. What people they'll appreciate that.
No, I don't want to jump in on this, but 24 Heinekens is a lot nicer than 24 non-alcoholic Heinekens, in fairness.
Yeah, it is. It didn't go down well. So it started off with, would you like a coffee, a tea, a beer? Oh, a beer. It's non-alcoholic. Well, it's not beer then, is it?
Ah,
yeah.
So you got it right, and they just rejected it out of hand.
Yeah.
Grumpy.
Yeah, very. So sort of thing, every time someone walked in, it's not real beer. Don't be fooled, it's not real beer.
Did you tell them it was a gateway drug?
I didn't. No,
there you go, you see.
Should have. And we ended with the old, like, what do we want to improve for next time? Get some real beer maybe this time. I was like, Jesus, all right. So now I've got 20 non-alcoholic Heineken downstairs.
The worst of the non-alcoholic lagers.
They're actually awful as well. Yeah, I didn't realise how bad it was.
Yeah.
And it was kind of okay in the context, out of a can, whatever,
It's just a bit sweet.
Nothing. It's a bit nothing, really, I'll be honest. Anyway, enough of terrible beer. What have you got for me?
So, pod beer, pairing the films with beers.
Yep.
As I'm now going to try from this point out.
At least for 1 week, at least.
Well, we'll see how it goes.
See.
So this week, I've gone with a beer that was something of a trailblazer.
Mm-hmm.
Is enduringly popular.
Right.
Even though if you look at it with a critical eye, it's got some problems.
Okay.
It also has a fandom that argues furiously amongst itself, yet will unite in looking down its nose on those that don't like it.
I'm not seeing the connection to the film here.
Any guesses as to what that beer might be?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, so enduringly popular.
Trailblazer, enduringly popular.
Are we talking it's a Brewdoggy one?
It is a Brewdog Punk IPA.
Oh, there we go.
There we go.
Good stuff. Thank you very much. Let me just...
Which, if this takes off, shall henceforth be known as the Star Wars of beers.
Star Wars of beers. All right. Oh, mine comes with an extra hair on it. Is that what's that part? It's curly as well. That's nice.
That could have come from a number of places.
Where'd you buy these from?
These were from the Co-op.
Oh, well, yeah. Oh, Curly Dan served you, did he?
All right.
Excuse us while we just pour our
It's great.
beers. Great podcast. Great for audio medium. But
I've made a bollocks of that.
there we go. You really have. Oh, yeah. You want to flake with that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, cheers. Okay.
Right, where were we?
Yeah. Lovely.
Oh, so anyway, this week, what you been up to? Any movies watched this week?
Oh, no. Still no time to watch films except this one. But I did, and this really links into something you've just pointed out. I figured out what the portmanteau for our podcube is.
Okay, you're going to have to refresh me in Dictionary Corner. Portmanteau?
Yeah, so basically smashing two words together to form a new word. Right.
Got you, right.
Which, traditionally I don't like, but I let this one slide. Well, one, because I've attached a fancy term to legitimise it.
Clever.
Yeah, right. But secondly, this is still a word, but podcube, obviously, it's been sitting right there this whole time.
Yep.
Pube.
Right, welcome. And is that why you put the short and curly on top of my beer?
There we go.
It's all connected. Brilliant.
So, the pod beer in the pube. We're away.
Right, welcome to the pube.
That's all I've got. What about you?
Good stuff. Well, let's grab this by the short and curlies and crack on. No, so yeah, this week, what have I watched? I watched American Fiction.
Oh, yes. Jeffrey Wright.
Yeah, liked it. Liked it a lot. Yeah.
Add it to the list.
Yeah, very good. Can see why he got an Oscar nom, right?
He did get an Oscar nom. Yeah, Jeffrey Wright.
Yeah,
good actor.
Yeah, really enjoyable film I found as well. Like proper, it's a proper Friday night film, I reckon. One that you can just there's some stuff in there if you wanted to.
Yep.
You could also just consume it on the surface level, which I did.
I was going to say, yeah, typically you like to take that one way or the other.
Yeah,
and it's usually the opposite way to the way I'll take it.
Until you don't like this and I've got to watch it properly.
Yeah. So if I take it at that level, are you going to be rewatching? Are you missing all the hidden meaning? I look forward to that.
And yeah, the only other thing I watched recently, which I didn't talk about, was Still, the Michael J. Fox documentary. Yeah, which was pretty good. It was all right. It was interesting. It was good. It's good to see. Having watched all the Back to the Futures recently, it was good to sort of round that off. Yeah. But yeah, what about you? You said you haven't watched anything.
No, I haven't watched anything. I'll tell you what though. Besides being too busy to watch anything, I am following our recording last week. Mm-hmm. I'm super excited to watch Apocalypse Now again. Every time I think I might
again,
yeah, I know. Every time I think I might watch a film, I think, I had such fun talking about that. I feel like I could watch that again. But obviously, not have time to watch any films. I certainly don't have time to bang on the best part of 3 hours.
Yeah, well, you could watch the theatrical. So it's a brisk 2.5.
Yeah. But no, nothing from me. Just this film.
So I nearly watched another film. I nearly watched Out of Darkness, or it's actually called The Origin. I think this got like 2 names. You familiar with it?
No.
So it's set in the, I want to say Stone Age, but it's basically a 90-minute film, and they use a made-up language throughout. And I sold this to Emma as I started the film. I was like, right, this is 90 minutes. There's no subtitles, and it's completely made-up language. She's like, nope,
I was going to say,
not for me.
It's like some drama student's wet dream.
Yeah, quite possibly. It turns out it actually does have subtitles, so she would have been okay with it.
Okay.
I didn't realise that at the time, though, so I might give that a go. It's not been massively well received, but
who's in it?
No one. Yeah, it's
low budget.
Don't know. Yeah, we'll see.
So the subtitles are just off these made up words.
Yeah. I mean, it's a made up language, right? So they made up a whole language. They called it something I can't remember. It was based off Basque, apparently.
Okay.
But yeah, so interesting. Might give that a watch. See what that's all about. The premise is quite interesting.
Sounds shite.
We'll see. I'll report back.
Yeah, fair enough.
So before we move on to the film, we got anything else or any apologies, corrections from previous weeks?
We're just not on top enough of the editing backlog to properly apologise. It's going to get to the point where we have to, as well as the accompanying legal statement, do a whole special episode on
just an apologies
and corrections, I'm sure.
The equivalent of a front page apology of a newspaper when they did a thing. Yeah. All right. So again, just a general, we're sorry. This week then.
Yeah.
All right. Good stuff. All right, so this week we are talking about Star Wars, or Star Wars Episode 4, or Star Wars Episode 4 A New Hope, if you want to give it its newer, longer, revised name. But before that, a quick recap of our rating system that we have on the podcast. So, simple 5-point scale, or if you're Carl, a simple 20-point scale of 0.25s, which will probably evolve into a 100-point scale at some point. Who knows?
No, that was indecision. That wasn't. That was just pure indecision.
But a simple 5-point scale. So you really don't like it, you don't like it, you're ambivalent, you like it, or you really like it. And let's start off with me, how I generally feel about this film. So this is on my really like, so the top end. And I will obviously go into more detail about what I like, but I'm more interested to know, Carl, what don't you like, Carl?
Well, I'm really not a fan of the way that water companies are getting away with pumping shit into our rivers, lakes and seas.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, it's way out of order.
Yeah. And Star Wars?
Well, I don't like this film. I wouldn't go as far as to say I really don't like it, but I don't like this film. Last week we had Apocalypse Now.
Yes.
Which we said was a classic, not just of the genre, but of cinema history. And that is true of this film too. I recognise that, even though I don't like it. But unlike last week, I have more of a hard time understanding why that is the case. Now, I do understand that at the time, it will have been groundbreaking for the genre and the sort of effects and whatnot. So there's going to be a generation that love it because of that. I get that.
Mm-hmm.
I also understand that if you watch something as a child, and this is true of any film, then nostalgia can gloss over a lot of things. So there's going to be a generation of people that watched it as a child and love it. I don't fit into either of those groups. I'm not old enough for the first one, and I never watched it as a child. In fact, I watched it the first time last year. And when I did watch it for the first time last year, I was kind of like, I was genuinely surprised. It was like, is that it? This is the thing that everybody raves on about and makes it to the top of all these lists of the. I just couldn't believe how sort of shonky it all was. So it's rough. I think when you look at it a bit closer, having not had any of those preconceptions, it is really, really rough around the edges, and for me, not deserving of the hype that it continues to get. A final note. We are talking about this film.
I like you say a final note at the start of the podcast.
Final note at the start, yeah.
And then that's it. You're done.
Yeah. Will I leave or just sit and listen to you talk? I don't know, but final note for now. We are talking about this film. Okay.
Yes, I know. Yes, this is a key point. Yes.
Because I also understand that this is part of a wider thing, but we're talking about this film. This is the first. And whilst others that come later, if you take them as a body of work in it, that's not what we're doing.
Yeah, so it is worth pointing out that we are coming at this movie from two very different perspectives and experience. So as you've just said, this is the first time you watched this film was last year.
Yeah.
Very much different from me. So I'm not a child of the 70s. I didn't watch it the first time round.
Yeah.
I'm not that old, despite appearances.
Yeah.
But I am a self-confessed Star Wars geek. I've watched it many, many times, plus the supporting movies, the TV series, the cartoons, even read a Star Wars novel in my time, watched all of the original 3, well, I guess, yeah, and the prequels, so 3 and the prequels, so 6 films, all back-to-back in one day as a student. I'm kind of all in on that thing. But as you say... although this was a big part of my childhood, and the re-releases particularly, and the prequels, big part of my sort of childhood and teens, I'm going to do my best to detach the Star Wars anthology from this individual movie.
Yeah.
And I'm hopeful that by doing that, I'm still going to be able to come out and say, I like it and it's good. But who knows? It on its own as a shonky B movie.
I mean, we'll see, right? But I don't think that is under threat for you though, because even if you come out with this going, this one is actually a bit naff, you've still got that whole.
Oh yeah, no, it's not going to ruin it for me.
Which is fair enough.
Imagine if you did. Imagine if you completely destroyed my childhood.
Your childhood. Wow.
You talked about the films that you watch as a child. Like what is like the seminal childhood teen movie thing? What was the thing that you really grabbed hold of and identified with and went with it? Was there anything?
Oh well, my dad was massively into films, so I watched a ton of films as a kid. Old films mostly. So there'd be a lot of like Laurel and Hardy stuff, and things like that, and then loads of black and white war films. I couldn't point to any one film in particular, but they'd be the thing that I remember most from childhood. Yeah.
If you see those popping across your TV as you're scrolling through the channels, as you do.
Well, yeah, in the way that I don't consume film anymore. But I did recently watch a load of Will Hay films, who 1930s comic, doing these films, which nobody without any sort of nostalgia is going to go back and watch, but for me it was like, it's great. I remember all these. Yeah, these are fun. So, what about you? Is it just Star Wars?
Primarily, yeah, it is definitely primarily Star Wars. I started watching when they re-released them in the late 90s. Watched all those at the cinema with my eldest brother. So obviously, sort of an important bit from there. But I'd seen them before. I remember watching The Empire Strikes Back at like my friend's house when I was in like early years of primary school. Like they were big into it already, and you kind of like watch it a little bit, go, what's going on here then? What's all this about? Yeah. And you kind of go, oh, it's pretty cool. And then you kind of get into it from there. But
I should say as well, I mentioned my dad and love of films. He fucking hates Star Wars. and the genre in general. So, maybe there's something going on there as to why that explains why I've come to it so late.
All right, well, let's kick things off with talking about the cast. And we'll start with the de facto lead of the piece, Mark Hamill as Luke. What do you make of Luke?
It's a shame you've put this one first, because I'd like to have done someone else so I could appear positive at first. But Mark Hamill is not good in this, I would say. I'd like to recognise that it is a tough acting gig when you're dealing with... I mean, he's acting with droids a lot, right? And they are dubbing a lot of it over afterwards, and all the rest of it. And also, as I will labour... Well, I won't labour. We'll have a laugh about it. It's a pretty camp screenplay as well. Yeah. So you put all that together. He's not great. What did you think?
Well, rewatching it with a critical eye, he plays it like a spoiled brat. It's
very whiny.
Yeah, very whiny, particularly to start. But I do kind of think that kind of fits. He's sort of completely green. He's kind of mesmerised by the unknown opportunity of escaping the planet, and he's basically like a small child. He's not really been given much release and kind of kept at home close to his aunt and uncle. Impressionable as well. I know we're getting into a bit of the character rather than the actor, but does latch onto literally everything the first second that he appears it. Oh, the Force. The Force is the most amazing thing in the world.
You say it first, but I mean, we go pretty deep into the film where they're like, oh, you need to get the bridge working again. Oh, shucks, I just blasted it.
That thing. Yeah, didn't really think that one through.
Yeah, so I had him down as... And again, some of this isn't his fault, but I had him down as pretty whiny, and then just seemingly completely indifferent. And the next, like, I just blasted that. Oh, my aunt and uncle are burning corpses. Well, never mind.
Yeah,
which you've got to ask your actor to do a bit more there, I think, to try and make those bits believable.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how much he'd done prior to this at all in general acting terms or anything. He seemed. He does come across like it's kind of all new to him. Yeah, very, very much so. And interesting, watching some of the outtakes, you can see some of the scenes that were cut, why they were cut.
Yeah, no, I didn't do that. Didn't have the inclination to do that.
No, well, Theo put on the extras.
Yeah,
there. But yeah, I mean, I think I'm not going to speak about the other movies, but he does grow into the role and as an actor as he goes through the movies. But in this one, he is full of. I was going to say he's full of spunk, but that might get us confused with the Star Wars porn movie, I suppose.
Which
Star Wars
probably exists in many. I mean,
I'm sure
any pun you can think of, it'll be out there, won't it?
Exactly, but he's very much full of enthusiasm. Sidebar. I mean, this probably lends itself pretty well to some good porn character names. You think of any off the top of your head from any of the main characters?
Princess Leia, right?
Princess Leia, yeah.
Han Solo writes itself.
Han Solo, I mean, perfect, yeah.
Maybe there's something in there, isn't there?
Jabba the Slut.
Oh, yeah. Jabba the Slut, yeah. Yeah, I mean...
C-3PO.
Whee! Oh, he's got a list.
Chewcocker.
That one's really stretching it.
It is a little bit. I can think of an Obi-Wan then. I'm sure there is one. There's got to be one there.
Yeah. Well, put a pin in that. We'll see.
It was almost as if George Lucas watched the porn film first and then converted the character names from the porn names, how well they all fit. But hey-ho. All right, let's get on to someone I think you'll be a bit more positive about. Harrison Ford as Han Solo.
Yeah, again, I wish you'd have done this one after someone else so I could finish on a high, because I had this guy last in my notes.
You wanted someone else to start as a positive, but not him. But
I wanted to sandwich my negatives in between the positives that I've got.
Right.
And we can sort of go the other way now. So
I'll find someone else crap.
I started on a low. we're gonna hit high. I don't think Ford's a great actor, right? And I actually thought about the conversation we had when we did Blood Diamond about Leonardo DiCaprio. Mm-hmm. I don't think he's a great actor either, but he's very, very charismatic.
Yeah,
right.
He's a star.
Yeah. So when you think of him in films like, I don't know if you've watched the Jack Ryan films.
Yeah.
For me, they require a bit more acting. I think he's pretty flat in those. And actually, Alec Baldwin, whom he replaced in the franchise, did a better job of that. When you put him in something like this, or Indiana Jones, when it's much more like larger-than-life character, he's really good. And I had him last because I've put, not a great actor, but finally some charisma.
Yes, definitely. I mean, that's what I've written. Oozes charisma on the screen. From the minute he's introduced, you can he takes over with the charisma. I think he's also the most interesting character, right? So we'll talk more when we come into the plot about the simplicity of the good versus evil and such, but he is the one of the few characters where he does sit in the kind of the grey zone, right? Everyone else is very much, he's the good guy.
Yeah.
Oh, he's the bad guy. He is
a bit of a mercenary scumbag type.
Yeah, can be, yeah. And therefore he's more interesting because of it. Which, George Lucas ruined a little bit in some of his choices, but we'll get to that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I did read about that.
Okay, well, positive.
Right, let's do Guinness. Okay.
Well, I'm just still on my punk IPA, mate.
Wee. Right.
He's famously not a fan of dark beers.
Alec Guinness.
Yeah.
No,
ironically.
Probably. Yeah. Is that true?
No, it's completely made up.
Right. Okay.
No.
Yeah.
No idea.
Good. Alec Guinness, I just think he's phoning it in a little bit here. He's very sort of flat. He does have a great voice. So in those lines that have become so well memed, that's not maybe a right word, but
it's penetrated words.
Popular culture.
There we go. Sure.
the psyche.
Zeitgeist?
Yeah, zeitgeist. Yes, brilliant.
That the word?
Yeah.
There we go.
I couldn't describe it, but I know when to use it.
Couldn't spell it, but I know how to say it.
So great voice. So the line's good, but otherwise, are you talking about interesting characters? He could have been a lot more of an interesting character than I feel like he actually was in this film.
He was clearly brought in as the gravitas, right?
Yeah,
we need
let's
someone.
get a name to attach.
We need a name. Yeah. We need a name, and he's doing a professional job in this. Is what it comes across as. I'm going to get here. I'm going to deliver my lines.
Yeah, I mean, he's really old by this point as well, so he's probably looking at it going, well, yeah, whatever, I'll do that. Like, he doesn't give a shit where it's going to go. It's not critical to his career. It's just...
Yeah, there's famously some like letters and communication of him talking about doing this. He goes, it doesn't seem like it's going to be very good, but I suppose we're going to give it a go.
It feels that way, I would say. I don't dislike him, but yeah, he's just a bit like, all right.
But he brings that gravitas, and I think he plays the wise old man, sage old man, as a good old fashioned actor that he is. He doesn't actually have that much to do in this as a character.
Probably at his request.
Yeah, quite possibly. But he kind of he helps to set the whole thing going. Right?
I can't make the scene. I'm golfing that day.
Doesn't seem like a golfer to me.
No, probably not. I don't know what drinking, smoke. I'm smoking that day.
I did allude to his name. Guinness is a type of beer. Can't think of any other actors who've got names of type of beer or a beer off the top of my head. Couldn't think of any.
Well, the whole thing's difficult unless you know an actor called Timothy Taylor.
Oh, yeah.
There'll be plenty
bound
of
to be
actors called
somewhere.
Taylor, yeah. Likewise, John Smith, I suppose. Yeah.
Probably not though, because I'd probably move away from being called John Smith.
Yeah.
Because it'd be like, I can't be called John Smith. But maybe for another day we'll do a top 3 actors you want to have a beer with, rather than named after. I think that'll be a good one to do down the line. All right. Well, let's round up with thoughts. So, Carrie Fisher, Princess Leia.
So I thought she was pretty good in this. She is probably the only one trying to act in this film, I would say. And she's pretty good. She had to do some horrible things to get the part, so she says. But she's going to make the most of it, and I thought she was all right.
She is. She's iconic within the role. With the hair styles, the outfits, and she's a powerful woman in this, and she plays it. I mean, I don't know how old she was in it. I think she was like 19 or something.
Yeah, I think she was young.
But she kind of comes across as wise beyond her years, self-assured and competent actress throughout, and obviously gets involved in the action bits as well. Strong, yeah. So I think for of its time as well, a strong female actor giving the boys a run for the money, I think is I don't know if I'm selling that era short, but it seems maybe it's a bit less common.
I mean, if you take my appraisal of the other guys, you've got Ford's a scumbag, Guinness is throwing it in, and Hamill's fucking useless. So Carrie Fisher is doing all the heavy lifting here. What an absolute heroine.
Anyone else you want to talk about? I've got a couple more.
No, I didn't have anyone else.
So
who could you have? They're all dressed up.
Yeah. But I'm going to group them as a collective, right? So the first one I want to use is James Earl Jones, the voice of Darth Vader.
Yeah, all right.
What did you make of Mufasa?
I mean, he's got a great voice for that sort of thing. Did I prefer him as Mufasa? Yeah, probably. I prefer the film.
It gives Lion King a whole new spin when he's everything the light touches.
Also, does rather make Jeremy Irons' Scar seem like a bit of a pussy after Darth Vader.
Yeah, well, he is a bit of a pussy. Anyway, let's not sidetrack. It's kind of his thing, isn't he? He's kind of a cowardly plotter. But anyway, we're talking about Star Wars, not Lion King.
Okay.
So droids and other people say... But I think there is a lot to be said about less R2D2 because that was a
just
little
beeps
man thing, and he wasn't really doing a lot of the work there.
Yeah.
But the C3PO giving it. I mean, you must have loved the camp.
Oh my god,
Comedy Valley. It must have been like the highlight for you,
Oh, yeah. I mean, they do embody the spirit of me watching it for the first time, going, "Eh, this film, 1977. This film is what everybody loves."
Did you watch it through Did you try and gaze at it through a child's eyes as well, though? In terms of because, like, watching it with my son, like he does giggle at the
no, I didn't, and
at
that's
the humor and things like that. So it's there is a target audience where that does work and is effective.
Yeah, I didn't, and it's a very fair point that, which is sort of an interesting thing as to who this film's actually aimed at as well. Yeah, no, I didn't even enter my mind that. So yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, I think they're definitely there for a purpose. One of exposition to sort of explain what's going on and to give a bit of hint to a bigger backstory and a bigger setting to what you're seeing on screen. But also they're definitely the sort of comedy. They are weirdly. Particularly like R2D2, give like almost the human emotion of the film as well. For some of it,
he has a little beepy cry at one point, doesn't he?
It's so expressive. Those beeps, they're just brilliant.
Yeah,
it's generally I love it. But and then there's a lot of actors in suits, of big people in suits who didn't do any of the actual either voice work or or anything.
You must know the trivia about the guy actually in Vader's suit.
David Prowse.
Yeah, who didn't know he'd been dubbed until the premiere. So
have you heard his voice?
No, yes, I have actually. I've seen a YouTube clip of it. I mean, yeah, they redubbed it for a reason. There's no gravitas behind that voice. No. But he didn't know. Can you imagine getting all look like you got your family there? Here I go.
Your voice sounds different.
Yeah, why do you sound like a big black man? Yeah, I mean, unless that's one of those things that, an urban myth or whatever, but absolutely gutting.
It would be.
Recasting.
Yeah.
Oh, unless you've got.
I'll hand over to you now. I'll hand over to you with the recasting.
All right. So, let's start with the shit ones. So we'll start shittest. Mark Hamill. I was trying to think of actors who would have been a similar age at the time, and who could give a bit more believability to his journey. Because I think it's fair to say that he's supposed to be a bit like petulant green kid at the start, but I wanted someone who could deliver just a bit more grit.
Got to be cheap as well, Carl. Got to be cheap.
Well, hopefully these hadn't done anything else by this time. I didn't check, but so I got two. Dennis Quaid was one.
Dennis Quaid, okay.
Yeah, but the other one, who I think could have done a really good job with this,
Randy Quaid.
No, Randy Quaid's too old. Kevin Bacon.
Kevin Bacon? Oh, can't imagine if Kevin Bacon was in Star Wars.
Yeah. Oh. I mean, he wouldn't have done, I don't think, anything else by that point.
No, he would have been very young, right?
But yeah,
he was an 80s kind of actor mainly, right?
Yeah, he could do the cocky side of it, no doubt. I mean, he is cocky in most stuff, but I think he's also got a bit more believability about it when it comes to being competently saving the world.
I've got nothing for the recasting, so you keep going, and I'll
just... Okay.
I definitely didn't forget.
I was going to say, did you forget? Is this a sign of your poor preparation, or do you simply think these own the roles so much?
Well, it's genuinely difficult. That is one of the challenges. When you are so familiar with the movie and the actors and the characters and everything, they're so associated with it. Throughout the rest of their careers, they are so closely associated, with the exception of Harrison Ford, maybe, who detached himself to a degree from it with other roles.
Yeah.
And you look at Carrie Fisher, bit parts, focused on the writing side of things. Mark Hamill largely just did spoofy versions of where he appeared as himself.
A very good actor.
and then obviously later Star Wars.
Nobody offered him any other jobs.
And then Alec Guinness, I've no idea. I assume he just died.
Yeah. Well, yeah, pretty old by that. So on Fisher, Princess Leia.
Emily Blunt, is it?
No. Could she do it? She could do anything. I think she could do it. She's good, yeah. Her or Anne Hathaway. No. So again, trying to pick someone else at the right sort of age. So I did read that Jodie Foster almost got this.
Really?
Yeah, she'd have been a child at the time, so they were going to go with a younger Princess Leia. Mm-hmm. But I did think that
that's an interesting choice. Yeah,
I don't know about that, but I did think if she was older, she could have done a good job of this Princess Leia as it is now. Because I think she's quite a good actress. I think she could have delivered that steel that's needed. But the name I've come up with, which is a bit of a cheat because she's in another sci-fi film not long after this, but Sigourney Weaver. Again, reckon she's got that competence and steel about her to deliver the performance that Fisher did. I think she'd be quite good at that.
Does she wear a croissant well on her head? That's the real question.
I mean, probably. Yeah.
I can see Sigourney Weaver. Yeah. Not bad.
Guinness, I just tried to think of another old man
with
a bit more lead left in the pencil, a bit more vim and vigour.
Yep.
And I've come up with Christopher Plummer.
Yep. Okay.
I thought he'd be quite good. Because you can't go too, over the top, because he is supposed to be like this world-weary sort of...
Yeah, agreed.
But yeah, he needs to, give me a bit of something. And then for Ford, for Solo...
this is where you can go with the bigger, more...
Yeah, and there's a great name for this, I think, and I've mentioned him before. He's just bloody brilliant. Kurt Russell. I think Kurt Russell could have done a great job with Solo. Not that Harrison Ford doesn't, but if we are going to give the role to someone else, Kurt's my guy.
Good stuff. Well, I definitely didn't forget to do that, so I'm just going to completely agree with all the ones you did. You did a good job. Well done.
Cool, thanks. Have you got any more notes, or do you want to wrap it up here?
Let's move on. Okay, let's move on to production. Probably quite a bit to say about this.
Right, I mean, just one thing over and over for me, but...
All right, I'll lead off then.
So obviously, plenty of examples of it.
Obviously directed by George Lucas.
Yeah.
And I'll be honest, and I've not seen a lot of his other things before this.
He hasn't done anything.
Well, he did 2 films, right? Did the old THX, whatever it was, and the other thing that's completely escaped my memory. Help me out here.
No, well, I looked as well, but I hadn't seen it. So
yeah. Well, you haven't, but American Graffiti.
That's I've heard of it, but not seen it. Yeah.
So a challenging filmography to put him in this. But I'm going to start with the production from the very start, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm not sure if this counts as production because, as you know, no idea what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But the 20th Century Fox intro thing, is just so linked to me with Star Wars that whenever that comes on in another film, I'm half expecting the Star Wars theme and the scroll to happen. And it must be just because that's the only films that I watched with that in. But that 20th Century Fox, which now I don't think it even exists anymore, does it? You don't. Or
they get absorbed by Warner Brothers or Disney probably. Or something like that.
And then the fanfare, the Star Wars theme in the start, and the scroll with the text, and a complete lack of any preceding credits. It's straight in there with that. And the lack of preceding credits was popularized because of this film. It had been done.
The cold open, if you like.
Yeah, it had been done previously. West Side Story apparently was one of the first ones, and a couple of others. But after this, it became more of a thing. Oh, you can do
go
that.
Straight into it. Yeah.
Apparently, a bit of a fight on their hands for the people that are.
So I can't remember
credited at the start of the film, because obviously people definitely stick around for the start of the film, so you get to see their names.
Yeah. So question for you then, because I can't remember. So obviously James Bond films do a cold open, but then they
go into
they have a credit scene. This doesn't have that, does it?
No,
it just carries on through the film. We just
straight in. Yeah.
Okay. Right.
And I think it's really. I still find it powerful that straight from the 20th Shock straight into. And then it's the scroll and the explanatory text which puts you in there, and I think it's I've never seen it done before.
Yeah, I don't think I have,
and it couldn't be done again without it just being a complete rip off and it just wouldn't be as effective for any other kind of films. It's just very original. That's where I'm going to start at the beginning. Big plus.
I don't know that anybody, and again, this is us coming at it from different directions, perhaps, but I don't know that anybody would ever watch a film that went straight in and they go, "Oh, it's like Star Wars." Do you think that's a thing?
Well, no, not go straight in, but like the scrolling.
The scrolling
thing.
Oh,
yeah, that's what I mean.
Yeah. Even though obviously Airplane 2, but
it's somewhat intentionally done as a spoof, though, right? So
well, no, I would say very intentionally.
It's being a spoofy film. But yeah, that's where.
Can you imagine if it wasn't intentional? We've got guys.
I've got a great idea.
Yeah, we've got a problem. That opening credits. Yeah, looks great. It's brilliant. Yeah.
Have you seen a film called?
What was it called? Check it. Star Wars. Yeah, it's been done before. It's not bugger off. Who else has thought of that? Have you heard of this?
We're gonna have to change this film to a comedy and pretend we're taking a piss.
Which is impressive consiering that was itself a sequel. So
imagine
how they then so was Airplane
retrofitted the first one.
No. So Airplane was a documentary, and we've just put a completely different spin on it, knowing that. Yeah, wow, meta.
There you go. So what have you got?
I mean, you shouldn't take any of this stuff seriously, right?
I mean, I take very little of what you say,
which is fine because I have no. Unlike some of the ones we've disagreed on in the past, I have no real beef for this film at all. I don't like it's not for me. It's quite funny. Laughing at it, not with it. My only real beef with this film is more about actually the Star Wars fans who insist that it's beyond reproach and anybody. What you've never seen, that sniffy sort of. You've never seen Star Wars, which I now can't say anymore.
Have you seen any of the others? Or have you just seen Star Wars?
So I had seen maybe half of Episode 1 around the time that came out. Not the cinema, but around the time it came out.
Yeah.
What's funny about that is I didn't mind it. And I believe that's one of the more frowned upon ones now. Episode 1.
Yeah, it is. But again, like retrospectively, yeah.
So I hadn't seen any of them except that. I'd never watched anything of the originals, but you absorb a lot of it through osmosis, right? Because it has had such an impact on popular culture. So I understand a lot of the references and whatnot. Yeah, just never watched it, but it. Yeah, the thing is, you've not seen Star Wars, and then it consistently top all of these lists and polls of films, and I'm just like, what? No. But otherwise, whatever. It's just all light-hearted fun, isn't it? So the production, and I guess even the bits I've got with the characters and the plot probably all come back to the production, which is just so over the top camp. It's just I genuinely couldn't believe what I was watching the first time around. But I do have some questions for you.
Oh, go for it.
So, you previously mentioned you sort of threw a question out there about narration, and you were like, "Is that legitimate or not?" And suggested maybe it was cheating a bit. I don't know that position.
Can it be considered?
How do you feel about words floating through the fucking sky?
Yeah, but that's
apparently that's fine.
That's to set the scene. It's it's like, all right, okay, I know where we are now. Yeah. Imagine if they had to try and explain
that's to do half an hour's worth of explanation that they couldn't be bothered with. So we'll just float these words through space.
But like the narration part is when you're filling in holes as you go along. You're like, oh shit, this doesn't work. We need someone to speak over to explain why we're linking from this to this and that to that.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
That's kind of, I guess, the difference. You have we've talked about this as well, like the text at the start of the film and the text at the end of the film to essentially like round it off and make it a complete
Listen, I don't mind. You ask the question, whatever makes you sleep at
night. It's a question.
So next on the music, so we're still on this opening bit.
Oh, right? Music, yeah.
Now, obviously, iconic theme tune.
Yep.
Have you actually...
And score throughout, right? I mean...
Yeah, but have you actually listened to the music at the start?
I mean, yeah, of course.
No, but like... Not as in, it's the Star Wars theme. Everybody loves the Star Wars theme. Have you actually listened to it?
Why?
It could be the version that I watched, right?
Right.
It is very sloppy. So the drums are not just way too loud and overpowering, but there's a couple of beats that are like out of time. It's just really, really sloppy when you're doing it. And I was thinking like, because everybody knows this theme tune. It's a great theme tune. I'm not arguing with that. But I'm like, this is weird. Has everybody fallen in love with the later version and forgot how like low rent this one is.
It seems unlikely that John Williams, the great John Williams, has pulled together something which was
This is
out of time after all. Yeah, I don't know. I've never noticed it, never heard anyone talk about it.
Honestly, I implore you to go back and just listen and go, oh, wow, yeah, I can.
I've heard it many, many times.
Actually, yeah, but no, this is it, though. This is what I'm saying. Do you think it's really great because you might have heard some good version of it, or you've just ingrained the melody into your head, which is a very catchy thing?
Well, I've seen it performed live multiple times.
Yeah,
as
but
well,
that's different. That's not what I'm saying.
Well, why?
I'm talking about the execution of it. I'm talking about the execution of it. What I'm saying is that iconic theme tune is actually not that well executed in this film. Whereas,
do you think they've changed it since?
Well, they will have. They'll have re-recorded it probably every time.
That drummer didn't get it right, did he?
Because that's that's.
I don't know. I've never heard anyone mention this before. So
again, like along the theme of like watching this, being like, "Hey, this is weird. This is jarring." Anyway,
odd.
Yeah.
But speaking of the score and everything more generally, John Williams, fan of John Williams?
Yeah. Jurassic Park, innit?
Yeah. Have you played the John Williams humming game?
No, but I like the sound of it.
So we're not going to do this because I don't think it would work very well. But essentially, right, it gets to the point where all John Williams music sounds the same.
Oh, no. Don't ruin John Williams.
Yeah, so you basically say, like, okay, Carl, hum the Jurassic Park.
This is going to be like Hans Zimmer and Pirates of the Caribbean and Gladiator.
So if you hum Jurassic Park and then you play, the Superman or Star Wars theme, then you go, okay, Carl, hum Jurassic Park. And you go, oh no, it's all gone wrong.
Oh, okay. Well, we should play that at some point, though, because that still does sound fun.
Yeah. It might be worth doing. And you see if you can beat it. Maybe you're just really, really good at it. Who knows? But I love the score.
So when I slag John Williams off, it's a problem. But when you slag him off, and not just one piece of work, his entire body of work you're going for now.
No, I'm saying the music is brilliant. He maybe uses some similar motifs throughout.
Fair enough.
It's a signature. Let's say it's a signature.
Yeah, they all
do. It's like nobody knows on about time, isn't he? I mean, you've got to have your thing. You've got to have your thing.
There's only so many bloody notes on a scale.
Exactly. Only so many instruments in an orchestra. What could you do?
Yeah.
The score generally, though, I do love. As I say, I've seen it performed live. I've kind of watched a live screening of this movie in like Leeds Arena with the live orchestra. I've seen it like performed in various places. It is powerful and emotive, but for me.
No, I agree. It's
even the cantina music, when in Han Solo's thing, it's so good.
Yeah,
it can't make you anything but smile listening to that.
Yeah, I love the cantina music, and don't get me wrong, that is still a bit on the camp side.
Oh, it's incredibly camp. Don't get me wrong. Yeah,
but well, it's sort of yes and no, because you know how like it just captures that sort of like the foreignness. If you go to a completely different style of music that's completely out of your it's completely out of your sort of familiarity. It has that quality, so I don't know that it's just completely camp and nothing else. But no, I do really like the canteen music. The soundtrack's great. Like my nitpicking of the theme tune at the start is entirely a production thing. It's not the soundtrack's not good. It's a great theme, great soundtrack.
I'm going to spend way too much time on production, by the way.
That's fine.
So, what do you reckon to the old costumes then? Makeup, costumes, art department, which we've never talked about because it's not been relevant.
Oh, that's true. Pretty good.
Sets?
There's some really good sets. I really like the he's home at the start.
In Tunisia?
Yes, it is in Tunisia, yeah.
Would you, if you went to Tunisia on holiday, would you visit it?
I've been to Tunisia.
Okay. Did you visit it?
No. I went to the Colosseum that was used in Gladiator instead.
Okay, well, at least you got the movie thing in
which tells you about where my film preferences lie as well.
So was there a temptation to go?
Well, there was a trip to go see it, but no, it didn't come quite high enough up the list of priorities. But don't they use it again in the
later
episode
films.
1, 2, and 3 films as well?
Yeah, they have used it. I have not been. I would like to, because I mean, the Tunisia set, particular on Tatooine,
looks good.
Yeah, it makes it feel really otherworldly.
Yeah.
I thought it's a perfect use of practical locations and sets, which he completely forgot about in the latter films. Of going like, oh, you know what we should do? Film it in a real place that looks like a real thing that actually looks alien.
This was his thing. Like, one of his major motivators for making episodes 1, 2, and 3 was he thought, well, the effects couldn't do justice.
Yeah.
At the time, and then like you say, and we've talked about this with films in general. You go too far, and it's all the worse. He is
the prime example of this. And we talked last week about dictators. That's not what I meant to say. Directors, but also,
well, yeah, what's the difference?
Yeah. But directors who completely continue to meddle with their own work. You know, they have multiple cuts of it, and it's just like, dude, it was fine to start with. Just let it go and move on. And, you know, the version that is out there now, unless you actively seek out other versions, is the remastered version where he has added unnecessary CGI parts to it. Are you familiar with the bits that are added?
I did a little bit of reading. I couldn't tell you... I couldn't tell you which version I watched the first time last year. I've watched the episode 4 version, same as you this time round. Because I only did that reading when I was watching it on Tatooine, and then I don't know what they're called, but the big things they ride in.
Yes, the Banthas.
I was like, well, that looks like too modern for this. And right, that's because they've added them afterwards or what have you. And then I took note of a couple of other places that they've changed it. So it's hard for me to appraise the sort of the practical effects, really, because he's replaced a fair bit of them.
Yeah, and it was really, let's say, completely unnecessary. And the around the Mos Eisley Cantina sort of entrance bit was some of the worst effects, where there's just stuff going on in the background that just wasn't there and is unnecessary.
And it's a shame.
People climbing off things with aren't real people, or climbing off not real things, and it just doesn't look.
No,
it doesn't meld.
No, it doesn't, and it's a shame because as you know, for me, the best looking bit of the film were the bloody real sets.
Exactly, yeah. It's just how do you lose sight of that? Did you notice so I'm assuming the version you watched that Han did not shoot first?
Yeah, they tried to redo his narrative.
Which doesn't make sense either, because the whole point of him being in the grey area is what makes him interesting. And you just go like, oh no. And it's also, how does he manage to miss? He's a bounty hunter. So how did you manage to...
I'd read that before, though,
because,
crazy. Like I say, I was triggered by the Banthas or whatever they're called. So I'd read that before, so I went into that knowing that, it was supposed to be like this sort of thing.
It's just so much cooler if he just goes like, dead.
Where you go. Yeah.
Very... And then the other one that's the most noticeable weird bit is when he's talking to Jabba the Hutt.
Oh, yeah.
And he walks over his tail.
Yeah.
Because in the original, obviously he's not really there, so he just walks around the area and steps around it. And you're like, oh no, that's unrealistic. Couldn't have stepped over the tail, could he?
The whole bit of him just looks weird, though, because there's a bit where they stood side by side, and it's like they're slightly overlapping in the shot. And the whole bit of that just looks a bit weird, but that's not the original film's fault. That's George Lucas meddling.
Exactly.
Who knows how shit it would have looked originally?
It is just one of those. The sort of things that the fanboys get annoyed about, but it's additions like that, just unnecessary stuff. But if you're improving something, actively just like, look, this is going to meld seams, you won't even be able to tell.
Yeah.
Then fine, but what are you doing? Keeping on costumes and things like that. What about all the different sort of alien-y things that are going on in there? What are you making of all the different species out there?
There's the fucking sand minions, isn't there?
Which
is
the sand
essentially
people?
No, not the sand people.
Oh right,
the bloody minion ones that are trying to sell him everything.
Yeah.
Miniboss, like space miniboss. They sounded like I'm like who are these now with the little red
Jawas.
Jawas, that's right, yeah. And then they're babbling on, and I'm like, this is literally just the minions. Which, to be fair, again, is another example of how popular culture, how ingrained it is on popular culture.
I mean, Star Wars did come first.
Exactly. Whoever's watched the minions has gone, these are basically just yellow Jawas or whatever. The sand people were the bigger ones that tried basically rob him, mug him, whatever, aren't they?
Yeah.
I mean, it's fine. Like, I don't want to do an old film down for its production quality because it is what it is.
I'm picking it up for some of that stuff, like the use of just like physical costumes and stuff, rather than just having a load of CGI background things.
They're not that convincing in the cantina, some of them, though, are they?
Well, they say convincing. I mean, it's like they're weird alien species. They look like they look. You know, what do you think of ballbag chin?
Like, what?
Testicle chin. You know,
I did notice that. I was like, hell of a pair on that band.
He doesn't like you.
Yeah, I did notice that. Yeah, massive. Yeah. Have you ever seen movie 43? Again, Hugh Jackman's character, definitely taken inspiration from that.
Okay, I've not seen it. I'll look it up. But any other alien species that or costumes that caught your eye in particular that you're like?
No, not really. I mean, I just took them all as they're all fine. Maybe we've stepped on this point a little bit already, but I've written down the feckin' robots, cheesy as balls.
Oh, see, how can you not love R2-D2 though?
Well, I did have more of a beef with C-3PO, to be fair.
Oh yeah, he's a bit of a dick.
Oh, he's a bit of a dick. Yeah. Fucking hell! Like he don't give a shit about R2 at the start.
He's a bit of a bully.
He's like, oh yes, I can do that, sir. Like flipping R2 as he goes off, and then. Yeah, and then when he does say, "Oh, well, this droid's all right, sir," he's like, "Don't fucking forget that. What I did for you. Don't forget it. You were willing to leave him behind a second ago."
He's a big old pretentious.
No, like so. What you said about look, if he's the comic relief for the kiddies, fair enough. But he was the embodiment of, oh my god, this is a camp film for me.
And I think particularly if you watch that just in isolation as well, and the first thing you do, and you're watching it as an adult, you are just going like, what?
Yeah.
What is this? That is very odd. But yeah, I can certainly.
Well, it was weird, right? Because, and I've got a lot of this down in the plot, but I was like, isn't this a serious film, like with some real jeopardy? And then you've got all this, right? Now, I get the comic relief side of it, like you said, but there are some moments in the plot where there's like some jump scares, there's some like existential threat, there's some really sinister stuff going on, and then they're just like, oh, hello, R2. It's like,
I mean, it is
fucking gay robots coming through. Like, isn't there a load of sort of lore around whether they are actually a couple or something?
I don't
sure
go that.
I don't go
theories
on that.
I'm sure there is. I mean, what there isn't written about Star Wars could fill a thimble.
Yeah, well, fair enough.
There is. People go very deep into it. It's very important to people, and fine, but still, you know,
yeah,
they're the same people that make questionable decisions on Twitter about certain other things, I'm sure as well. So,
I'll tell you the last thing I've got in the production.
All right.
And again, I don't want to do a film down for dated effects because, that's just not fair. And I think if that sort of thing is going to take you out of the film, that's really on you as the viewer, isn't it? More than anything else. But in line with this is actually, I think, a bit of a sloppy production, much more so than I was expecting. The lasers at the start in that first scene, when they're inside of the ship, are just they're just ridiculous, right? And I'm not talking about the actual effect. I'm talking about the choreography of where they chose to paint them on the screen, right? And they're just flying everywhere, even when like the battle is along another plane, like going along the Z plane back and forth. Instead, they're going left to right, and it just leaves you with this scene where like, well, how are they just walking through? Then you get the C-3PO doddering through and going, whoa! It's like,
what I found hilarious, right, is there's the scene where Obi-Wan is saying, "Oh, these shots are far too accurate for sand people. These are these must be the stormtroopers. Have you seen the stormtroopers shoot? Couldn't shoot anything. It's just like you're in a corridor. It's literally like target practice. All you need to do is shoot straight, and they can't hit anyone."
Yeah, and it made those scenes just be like, oh Christ, like there's no real jeopardy in this scene.
Yeah, I mean there's aspects of the Austin Powers thing, isn't there?
Yes. But again, I say that as like that. I'm questioning the production decision there, rather than the actual production quality, because that just is what it is, you know. But yeah, I mean, it is what it is. So overall, I was surprised at how sort of shoddy and camp the production was and the decisions they took there.
Yeah, I mean, it is. I still think it is a B movie, right? It is essentially a pretty low budget sci-fi.
And that's part of the problem with coming to it cold, isn't it? Like I am, because you're expecting part of this big
huge
saga,
yeah,
and it just isn't that, because it's the first step, and the rest of it's going to come later. And honestly, it's not really my sort of film, but I'm a bit of a completist. Probably at some point we'll get round to.
Oh, we'll watch them all in a day, Carl. Let's do it.
That's not happening. Well, at some point we'll get round to following it through a bit more. At least 6.
Yeah.
I don't know about the other bloody 12 or whatever there is.
Another 3 plus then the extended ones.
But sure. But yeah, I think that you've just hit the nail on the head there. Really, it's like it's not actually this big A-list Hollywood production. It's a lot smaller than that.
Yeah. A couple of more things on production for me. So, spaceships and general vehicle design things.
Oh, yeah,
Millennium Falcon. It's cool, isn't it?
Fair point.
It's pretty cool.
I've called this out somewhere, but not under production, so you haven't done your notes. Mine are shite. The world building is really good.
It isn't.
They introduce a lot of stuff, and there's clearly a lot of thought gone into, well, obviously these fighters are going to be different to these fighters, and we'll have distinctive designs, and
they're all battered to shit as well.
Yeah,
which I like. They're not all shiny. Nothing shiny and new. It all looks like they've second-handed it from various places. Scorch marks everywhere. It's all
probably all the materials
apart.
They were. We're all
I mean, talking as we're still on production, like you look in some of the background stuff of what they've essentially done to create these like alien-looking things.
Yeah, don't look too close.
Yeah. They've just stuck like 2 things together. Just gone. Dustbin, hairdryer.
Yeah,
there we go.
Yeah.
Sorted.
Well, R2D2 is a dustbin, isn't he?
Yeah, he's essentially, yeah.
I'm sure that's what they made him out. I don't know.
But yeah, like the Millennium Falcon, the Star Destroyers,
which one were the Star Destroyers?
The big ass ones. The one at the start where it starts shooting the thing, and you get the scale of.
So do you know that, or do you only know what they're called because you've seen the other films?
They say Star Destroyer, like he outruns Star Destroyers. You drop your cargo at the first sign of an Imperial Star Destroyer. I've got to say, I was struggling
to keep up with a lot of the names for things, which you drop a lot on you.
Yeah, I mean, and that's where it's difficult for me to appreciate that now, because so familiar to the point where like the weird very minor characters aren't even introduced by a name, because you just kind of
like TIE fighters, which ones are the TIE fighters?
The TIE fighters are the enemy, the bad.
So do they say that in the
film? No, I don't think they do in this one. No.
Okay.
And same with the X-Wings. I don't think they probably call them.
Oh, X-Wings. I didn't know what they were called. Yeah. Okay. Fair enough.
They're the good ones. Yeah. But again, these are all the things that get named and get built on in later things. So you refer to them, but you're right. The Death Star does get named. Yeah. That's no moon.
Oh, so fun things on again on popular culture. They used the Death Star thing in an episode of Knight Rider, I think.
Okay.
So it's got that one point of weakness. I'm sure that Knight Rider comes up against this armoured truck at some point.
And it's got a small vent, has it?
Yeah, the computer runs it, and it's like, we found this one point of weakness. We need to execute it well. And it's like, oh yeah, it's that.
It's everywhere, mate.
It really is. Yeah, it really is.
Last thing on production before we get to what would you change? Lightsabers. Thoughts on lightsabers?
Oh, cool. Yeah.
Cool, right?
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, good.
I mean, the way they use them is ridiculous.
We'll get to that.
It seems it must be a lot easier to just kill someone. Whatever. Turn them off and on and flick them on and off.
So what would you change, Carl, production-wise? Anything? What's the highlights of the things?
I haven't written anything down for this because...
Poorly prepared?
No, because... listen, I've done my homework. Pro. Because what can you say? Like, my... notes for the production are just how camp it is, right? And how some of the effects are perhaps poorly choreographed rather than being whatever. But like you say, maybe it's a bit more of a B movie sort of thing. And so, what are you going to say? Like, but do that, but do it better. Yeah. It's just a silly observation.
Give me more money, Jesus.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So for me, from a production side, like, get someone in to just spruce up the dialogue just a touch.
Well, yes.
Just get it so the actors can actually get it out of their mouths, like without them obviously struggling.
Fair enough. And I have similar thoughts, but I've actually put them into plot.
Oh, okay.
But,
and then
you're right. It's
of the version that I watched for this, cut out the unnecessary CGI and the add-ons.
Yeah.
And embrace the grey area murkiness of the Han character and don't change that. So really, what I'm basically saying is go back to the original version and just get someone to maybe just take a look at the script.
Your childhood's gone, Simon. Let it go.
Punch it up a bit. My childhood's gone. Yeah.
The problem with that, though, is you know who they're getting to punch scripts up a bit these days, don't you?
Carrie Fisher.
Phoebe Waller-Bridge.
Oh, yeah.
So she'll just end up dropping in loads of jokes about anal.
Yeah.
I mean, how's that
working
for you? Yeah, fair enough. Well, there you go, then.
Okay, let's move on to the plot. I'm going to let you lead off, Carl, with this one. I could talk about the plot and all the things I love about it, but that's going to be less fun.
Can I just shock you?
Oh! All right, Alan.
The story is quite good. Now, the plot has issues, right? Now, I hate to appear that I know what I'm talking about.
Sure.
Because I don't.
No.
But I do appreciate that story and plot are slightly different things.
They are.
But I think the story is quite good, right? So you've got, obviously, pretty basic premise at the start, good versus evil and all the rest of it.
Oh, yes.
But you've got some nice little, some story points there with the old guy guiding the young buck, and then, the sort of the evil overlord who has these mysterious powers, and then the way he sort of, they escape, but then it's part of the plan, and, I thought the story was quite good. It made for a reasonably enjoyable sort of journey through the film, even if the execution wasn't quite there.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree that the story it's super simple, and to its credit, right? There's some films out there that are massively overcomplicated to the detriment. Yeah. There's complicated films that are, that's kind of the deal, right? And
you have to be really good to do a complicated story.
Yeah, but if you just execute a simple story well,
yeah,
it goes to show that you can do that successfully.
Definitely, it's definitely a lost art, that, because so many films end up with a third act problem because they back themselves into corners with an overly complicated story that they've then got to try and fight their way out of.
Yeah, exactly.
And this doesn't have that problem at all. This is. I mean, it is a simple story, but there's little bits here and there that are going on. It's a good story.
There's, as I say, the clear good versus evil, right? You introduce Darth Vader. He's all dressed in black. He's got a cape. He's clearly badass. Every line of dialogue he has is basically a nefarious plot. Disregard for any kind of democracy and just on a massive power trip. And then you throw in the ability to choke someone just by...
Yeah, properly menacing power, by the way.
Yeah, I'd love that.
I mean, I have to wonder why both him and Obi-Wan didn't use the Force a bit more when it might have come in handy, but...
He overcorrects for that later, don't worry. But then equally, Leia introduced all in white. Clearly, the good person, Luke, all in white.
Yeah.
He keeps it very, very straightforward. Like, you're not going to have anyone going. I say that actually. I've read reviews. People going like, I don't understand what's happening.
No, that's on them.
Yeah. I mean, like the overall thing, it's straightforward. It's simple, but
of course, these days Leia would have had an iPhone and Darth Vader would have had an Android. You heard about that?
No.
What? Apple won't license their products in films if the baddie uses it.
Really?
Yeah, it's true. Yeah. Well, look, I say it's true. I've heard it said many a times on film podcasts and in film articles. So either it's true or it's a lie that loads of people have swallowed.
iPhones, basically.
Yeah, so terrorists won't have iPhones in a film. The good guy will have an iPhone.
Fascinating.
Yeah, so
I'm definitely going to have to look out for that now. Yeah.
So yeah, Darth Vader's Samsung all the way.
Is this going to be one of the things you would have changed? Add mobile phones. These intercoms. No, just phone them up, WhatsApp them. Come on.
Yeah.
What else you got? What's your thoughts on?
Yeah. So story's quite good. and again, you've touched on this in production, and maybe it is better served in production. My problem with the actual plotting of that story is it just comes back to a similar sort of thing. It is just a bit shoddy, right? So there are too many times where they introduce like some real threat or jeopardy or something goes wrong, and then it's like, oh no, my family corpses outside. Oh well, on we go. The next scene.
I had that written down.
Yeah,
right.
and then it's like, what about the get the bridge thing open quick? Ah, shucks, I've just blown it up. It's like
the thing on that was
it's constantly pulling the rug out from under its own feet in the execution of the plot.
Just while you're on that, so the burned corpses that essentially set Luke on his journey, right? Releases him from the thing. It's proper menacing, brutal. Like you've just seen the burnt carcass of your family that have raised you from a child, from a baby.
Yeah, and he's already got a dead dad. Imagine all the
issues,
internal issues with that.
Exactly. And he does immediately forget about that. But he's very upset by the death of the old man he's known for 5 minutes.
That's right.
Haunted by it. By it.
There's another bit as well with Leia and Hans when they go, why do you think it was so easy to get out? They're tracking us. He's like, no, sister. It's like, well. Okay, it works for me. No, you said that.
You did call me sister.
Should we check? Nah.
No, not on this ship. You mean he couldn't put a tracker anywhere?
No.
No. When you left it unattended for hours.
Not on this trick, sister. Ship, sister. Oh, all right then. If you say so. Right, on we go.
There was a really jarring bit of dialogue just to that because he says sister. He uses sister again, in the 2 lines later, and it just feels weird that he's used it twice. And it's just like again, it's just that dialogue. It's like if someone had just change it to something else. Yeah.
Like I did think just in general, like there is like some genuine, like the Force is what he does with the strangling thing. I mean that's super scary. There's a jump scare with the Sand People as well, which I did actually jump at.
Looking through the binoculars,
and he's over him. There's a jump scare with that. There is, like you said, we've touched on the burn courses. She's set up for medical interrogation.
Yeah, right. That's proper.
Like, oh no! And then later they said, yeah, she's scheduled for termination or whatever the term is. And you have all of that, but then we keep just constantly cheapening it every time with like, oh yeah, right. But with the next scene to do, onwards.
Yeah. So I mean, they do destroy an entire planet. As well.
And I can't remember what the line is there, but I imagine it's akin to, oh no! Right, what's next?
Yeah. I mean, I think, to be fair with that one, Obi-Wan does say, like, if like, everyone, like, a whole world was screaming out at once and there was suddenly silence. And he's probably, like, perturbed by that because he can feel the Force and the effects of it. But, like, he's just said that, and then Luke's like, yeah, I'm going to play with my zapper and my lightsaber. It's like, maybe you should be a bit more concerned about what he's just said. On
the plot, by the way, another impact on popular culture. Have you seen Jungle Cruise? I don't think you have. We've touched on
No, you mentioned that the other week.
So the plot in Jungle Cruise, certainly the first half of it, is basically identical to this film.
Had to get the plans for a death tree.
Look, pretty much. So there's an ancient artifact that's going to unlock, all this thing or stop some evil. And you've got like the idiot camp robots, right? So you've got C-3PO in Jack Whitehall, played by his much more capable sister, Emily Blunt. And then you have Han Solo, who's the charismatic mercenary in The Rock, who owes money to Paul Jabba the Hutt Giamatti. It's like Italian Jabba the Hutt. It's like incredible. So yeah, if you ever watch Jungle Cruise,
would have been some good recasting, by the way.
You'll probably love it. You'll Paul Giamatti for Jabba the Hutt. Yeah, like she won't be whatever. So you'll probably love it. You watch Jungle Cruise.
I will.
You'll be like, Star Wars. This is great.
The only thing I know about Jungle Cruise,
it's even got some shit CGI for you to get your teeth into.
Oh, good stuff. The only thing I know about Jungle Cruise is watching this documentary about the making of the ride. Right.
Oh yeah.
which I guess was made as like a prelude for the
It's a
film
ride
being
first.
made.
No, it's a ride first.
I know it's a ride. Yeah, I know. But I imagine the reason why that documentary exists was for the run-up of the film. I don't know.
Yeah, okay, I see.
But apparently they script like the people who are talking you around and stuff. They've got a choice of like 6 scripts that they can choose, and they're oh, but they always have to get this line about the backside of the waterfall or something along those lines. So they obviously put that line in the film, and The Rock says that like knowingly. You're just like, what? Like, who are you making this film for? Like, just people that have been on this ride?
Yeah.
Just people that have done the thing? It's just like, it's a very odd nod.
Well, Pirates of the Caribbean was the same.
Good ride, actually.
Yeah, never been. But a ride first, and then a film, which is made. Many films now.
We've got somewhat distracted.
Sidebar.
Jedi mind trick on the stormtroopers. So again, doing the alluding to the power of the Force without really showing its.
Well, I wondered why he did
potential.
that, and then bothered haggling with Hans.
Weak-minded, you say, only works on the weak-minded.
Yeah, Hans was definitely fitting that criteria at that point.
It should be clear, it's not called Hans. It's not Hans Gruber.
Han Solo.
Just Han, yeah.
Just Han Solo, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I say it all the Han Solo. Hans
He's not Han Solo.
Hans Olo. I'm going to call him that now.
Han Solo, just to annoy people.
Yeah,
just
Hans
find your biggest
Olo.
Star Wars geek and just be like, what about that Hans?
Yeah.
Hans Olo.
Yeah.
But the things I like about the plot were even with like the C-3PO dialogue and this constant of that alluding to a bigger story and a history of that foundation setting of it, which I guess at the time he made the film, right? He didn't know that there was going to be this whole other thing. He's obviously like built the degree of this in his head. So but I think it's to its credit that it builds that, because it's not just a standalone story and it actually gets you going, oh, what? Like there's a bigger purpose than just, oh yeah, we need to find this thing for this one event thing, because you kind of feel like there's more going on. I mean, ultimately they tie themselves in knots, but that's down the line in different movies when they're trying to backfill to meet all of these things that they've built up in the first film unthinkingly of how this is going to impact further down the line.
They kept it simple.
What else you got?
Nothing really for plot. Just the whole way it keeps. Whoa, Jeopardy! Right, let's move on.
Yeah. I mean, I guess one of those scenes which I think I want to call out is the ad hoc sort of rescue of Leia. Right, that's not their mission. Their whole rescue thing. It's just to get the force field down and piss off. Not the force field, the tractor beam. And in fact, it turns into a rescue, but it's obviously a very poorly planned and executed rescue, and it gives Leia the chance to actually, it's cowboy shit. Some other film said that the other day, not Tenet, like another one.
Cowboy shit.
Yeah.
Ah.
Oh no, it was in Reacher TV series.
Oh, okay.
Used that. I didn't know whether it was a nod. But either way. But yeah, Leia really puts the sort of boys in their place and going like, what sort of rescue mission is this? Like, she's obviously not perfect as well, because she leads them straight down a trash compactor and almost to their doom. What did you make of the trash compactor scene? Any tension there?
Yeah, there was a little bit of tension there. I didn't quite understand why the fucking lizard just fucked off.
Because it started to compact. So it's like, oh, I'm getting out of here. I'm going to get squashed.
Where did it go then? How did it go? Just down?
Down, yep.
Yeah. Because I was like, they've introduced that, which is a genuinely scary thing, like this like thing you can't see pulling you under and all the rest of it. And then obviously the walls start coming in, and then it's just like they've gone... It comes back to the same thing, like execution. They just go, right, well, we're done with that alien now. That's not the danger. Yeah, but then
it's the prelude to the walls coming in.
Yeah, but like they didn't explain where it went, how it got away.
Well, they didn't explain everything.
No, I just, it was like they'd had an idea for how to make that scene scary, and they couldn't decide which one to pick.
Oh, I like the fact that it's just like, oh, that's the danger and then it gives it, it's like, oh, we're saved, excellent. And, oh, wait, hold on.
Yeah, but they didn't say how they were saved. Or did they shoot it or something?
It just like, what happened? Let me go. It just let me go, and then you're like, oh, that is weird.
Yeah.
And then the walls, you're like, oh, okay.
Yeah, but that is weird. Now bottom that out. why did it let him go?
You don't need to bottom that out, I don't think. Because then it moves on to the next bit of Jeopardy, which is...
Yeah, and we come back to the same thing of like, oh, Jeopardy.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
That's done with now.
I think that's
Next
different,
one.
though. I think that's different because that is... it's a roller coaster thing of for the characters where it's like, oh, you think you've escaped? No, you're not. Here's another one.
I mean, it's fine.
I
The
take your
scene was
point.
fine.
Lightsaber battle?
I mean, not the best choreographed thing you've ever seen in the world.
Yeah, by today's standards, pretty tame.
Yeah, Alec Guinness
Standing still.
pottering around. But do you know what? I mean, this, you might tell me this is true of the later Star Wars films, but they'd have way over-egged it in the today if they did today. And you wouldn't be able to see any of the bloody things because it'd all be close-ups and it'd just be like swishing around and you wouldn't actually get to the sense of them actually fighting any,
They actually, yeah, they do it pretty well in the later ones in terms of they have a lot of the choreography is from a distance, so you can see them doing it. You can tell they've really like nailed this choreo, and it is the actors doing the sword fighting essentially.
Because have you seen Argyle?
No, not yet. So it's on my list.
I've been slightly dishonest when I say we've not watched any films because Vicky and I managed to get through half of Argyle.
Oh dear.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Matthew Vaughn should be watchable.
No, so Matthew Vaughn, Layer Cake Matthew Vaughn, great.
Sure.
Matthew Vaughn, the 19th, what's it called?
19th.
The Kingsman films.
Kingsman,
yeah.
Not
so great. And that's much better in this vein. Like, I didn't mind the first Kingsman, but the way they've gone silly, camping over the top. Argyle is like the worst Kingsman you can think of on speed. And there's a...
I'm definitely going to watch it now.
Well, you might like it. There's a fight scene in there, and it's so ridiculous. You're just like, that doesn't work. You compare that choreography to something like, the fights in like Jason Bourne, those sorts of films. That is great. That's really badass, I think. Rather than, doesn't this look good? And that's always the danger, I think, with going, okay, this film in Star Wars, this choreography in Star Wars is a bit low rent, right? But you don't want to go too far the other way either, because you take away that they're actually having a fight and they might die here, So, yeah, it was fine.
And good delivery of the, if you strike me down.
Yeah, you can't win.
That you can't win. It's not bad. It's pretty good.
I will become stronger than you ever imagined.
Yep, more powerful. But yeah,
more powerful.
Yeah, but it's another iconic line that gets used a lot. Interesting. Have you seen the Family Guy episode of this?
Yeah,
so good. I was tempted to watch it last night in preparation for it. There's much better bits in it than this, but just when they're in the Millennium Falcon, like shooting the TIE fighters, and then he goes, "I got one." He goes, "Don't get penisy, kid." Instead of don't get cocky. It's like it's not even the best bit of it, but it's just the fact it's the only bit that sticks in my head.
I do like Family Guy.
The final battle against the Death Star,
pretty good. Yeah.
Why do they have to start like right at the end of the trench and not just fly right to the?
You would think that's maybe like safer than flying in open space for longer, but I don't know. But it was pretty good.
Did you enjoy the various pilots meeting their end, including Porkins, the fat one?
Oh, is that what he was called? Porkins?
Yeah, Porkins.
I did think when I saw him, I thought, Christ, he wouldn't get cast anymore.
The name Porkins as well. It's
Porkins, a bit on the nose. But
it was. But yeah, that was a real moment of
he's
tension.
eating well anyway. They're doing all right in Alderaan. Is that where he's from? I don't know.
Well, he's rebel, so he could be from anywhere in the galaxy. But yeah, that whole thing is obviously iconic, and use the Force.
Yeah.
And then the last minute save by Han coming in and doing it. It's been massively overused since.
Oh yeah,
even in Star Wars, in fact, and various other films of the last minute
I'm just trying to
returning.
Think, have they in fact just nicked it off the Dam Busters, which would be an
quite possibly, film. Yeah.
I'm trying to think if that has the same trope of a Force goes in, gets blown away, and then we have to swoop it. It's one guy remaining there. But it was fine. I thought it was pretty decent. I'm thinking now you should use the Force. I'm sure there's again thinking about how things have been lampooned. I'm sure there's a joke in a cartoon somewhere. Maybe it's The Simpsons.
It's The Simpsons.
Is it when you go, use the forks, Luke? The forks. You were going to say that, weren't you? What's that in reference to then? Why are we using the forks?
Because
he needs to rescue himself or something.
It's Homer is rescuing Mark Hamill from superfans, and he says, "Use the fork," and he goes, "The force, the forks, use the forks."
Yeah. That's right. Yeah. Oh, very good.
Other thing, last thing for me. So, no medal for the Wookiee. Racist?
I hadn't considered it. Maybe that says more about me.
How pissed off would you be, right? If you've been part of this rebel alliance and fighting for ages, and then these two guys come in for one thing and they get the medal, and you're there going, "Yeah, well done."
Did the droids get one?
No.
Ah, well, that's it's a class thing, then, isn't it?
Yeah.
More than a racial thing. Guess
what they correct in later films?
Did they give him a medal?
He gets Hans medal, and he gets a medal because of that very. It did have because R2, I think, is the heart of the film, as I've said. So like the little thing at him at the end at the ceremony where you reveal he's okay, and he's like, "Woo!" Very happy. The thing is generally makes me smile every time.
Yeah.
What would you change, Carl?
Look, not too much, because I do think the story's pretty good. You just need to tighten up on the execution of it a bit so that we don't flip between these set pieces fucking immediately and completely dismiss any grief or jeopardy that we have accrued in the previous scene. But otherwise, not much, to be honest with you. The story's fine.
So for me, and what they learned in subsequent movies, I think as well, was to have more than one thing going on in the final bit, so that you're almost cutting to two things going on at once that are equally tense. And so, because with the sort of final assault on the Death Star, it's quite repetitive.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, we're flying into
never get closer.
We're flying to the thing. Yeah. We're flying to the thing. It's just like, if you had something else going on, as someone else was in peril, because they keep cutting back to Princess
it's probably
Leia.
The same shot.
Yeah, Princess Leia just looking a bit concerned and stuff. But whereas, like in later films, they do have to there's something going on here, and there's something going on here, and you kind of like, oh crap, oh god, and it works a lot. It works a lot better. It's still perfectly good. It's perfectly fine.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong. And then also maybe a slightly less cheesy ending with the medals at the end, with the whole presentation thing. I could deal with something that's a bit less cheesy.
Yeah, don't disagree. But let me tell you, as an outsider, if you like, that is entirely in keeping with the tone of this film.
It is. I agree.
And I don't mean that as a positive.
I'm taking it as one though.
So, no, that's fine. You're welcome to do so.
Okay, we finished things off talking about the movie, at least with This Is Why You're Wrong. So almost our closing statement. Who's going first with this one?
Go on, you go first.
I'll go first. So, treated in complete isolation, which is difficult for me to do. I can see why people coming new to this film would have, issues getting into it and seeing it. Like, there is some clunky dialogue. It is essentially a B movie. It's got cheesy moments. There are some plot holes. But even with that, and being a Star Wars geek, I'm not one of those Star Wars geeks that can't see it and completely blinded by it. But the film still transports me to that galaxy far, far away. And I think there's enough heart and enough jeopardy and enough alluding to a bigger thing of that foundation building that if I had seen this for the first time, it would have made me want to see more and spend longer with those characters and in that world to see where it goes. So I think we've talked a lot about it. It's of its time. It's of the budget and the standard of the film. You can pick some holes in it, but it still sits up there as one of the great films of my life, as it were. That will sit with me for many years to come. Carl.
All right. I'll tell you what I was going to say, because I think I do have to adjust this a little bit, but let me get this out of the way. I was going to say, despite its jump scares, mysterious psychic weapons, burned corpses, medical torture and interrogation, the threat of execution, this is way too camp to be taken seriously. And I was going to sort of come with my pre-prepared defense of, you're going to say, but, that's fine, it's just fun. And then I'm going to say, yeah, but it's not good enough to be regularly top film lists and be this, weird barometer of you as a sort of a film enjoyer. Like, you haven't seen it, what's going on? But you haven't said any of that, really.
I always disappoint you.
So it does rather disarm me. So, look, the only thing I would take issue with what you just said is you're saying, it's got some holes. I would say that there are some fundamental... I think the problems with it are a little more fundamental than that, because it is just really, really camp and everything. But I think you've made a good point about, budget and things, and where we were at the time, which I hadn't considered it, is if you take it through that B-movie lens instead, you go, well, you sort of, yeah, it is a bit like that, but that's because reasons, and also, the thing you said about the camp robots are really just that sort of comic relief, and if you think about how children might take that and all the rest of it, don't sort of get too hung up on that. So that's all fair enough. Look, it's still not really my thing because it is really, really camp. I don't see on its own that it does much to hold itself up to that really high, lofty thing that people talk about Star Wars as a franchise with. Mm-hmm. But equally, it's difficult for me to tell you you're wrong for enjoying it, because that's up to you, and there's nothing really.
If I had to make you watch The Empire Strikes Back now, how would you feel?
What, right now?
Not right now,
like I said earlier, I probably will at some point get around to watching certainly the next two, and then I guess. But
the idea of it doesn't make you go, oh.
No, not at all. I don't have a massive issue with the franchise as a group of films. It's more the bullshit that surrounds it, So, yeah, I'll probably give them a watch.
Good stuff. So, would you say your needle's been moved?
I think, in the true spirit of this podcast, and indeed the definition of the word ambivalent, I think I would probably have to say, with that sort of
more ambivalent,
new look on things. Movie, you don't have to take it as this grandiose thing. Yeah, I probably would have to say yes. You can shift me on up to ambivalent.
Ooh, excellent.
Now, but we've never had this before. But has your needle come down?
No, it's not. As I said, I can see the perspective. I can see your perspective on it, having seen it in your late 30s. Yeah. If you would, I'd almost be a bit, I don't know, suspicious of you if you had watched this and gone I'm a huge Star Wars fan now after watching one film in my late 30s. I just didn't see that.
And that really comes back to my thing with the whole, why is the community so fucking extra? Because it's like
no other.
Yeah.
It genuinely is no other sort of fandom that exists in the world. It's crazy. You don't want to upset Star Wars fans. You will
they will come for you.
They will find you.
Yeah.
Good stuff. All right. Moving on to the data section. So a bit of ratings for us then. So this scores pretty highly for me. So it's going to be a 4.5 on my Letterboxd. It's a straight 10 on my IMDb in terms of it fits the classic.
You've left yourself nowhere to go there with it.
Well, I have with the 4.5. Yeah. You see, I can't go down to 9 because 9 sits in with a different sort of pool of films on my IMDb.
You just ratings. Need to normalise it all at some point.
I think you think that they.
Yeah,
can't be doing that. There's hundreds of films on there.
Yeah, that's the problem, isn't it?
But it's true. Carl?
Well, so I scored this last year as a 1.5. I will score it again when I re-review it. I might go up to 2. It's not going to be that I necessarily think it's better. I just don't actively dislike it. Mm-hmm. Somewhere around there.
On talking of the IMDb rating, so it's 8.6, so pretty high up there. 90 on the old Metacritic score. 4.2 on Letterboxd, so a little bit on the lower side.
It's always a bit more considered, isn't it? Letterboxd, it seems.
Tends to be, yeah, a little more. Weirdly, I think last week it was higher, wasn't it? The IMDb one for Apocalypse Now. So I'm wondering whether we see a pattern in the type of films that get scored a bit higher and the type of films that get scored a bit lower.
We've called this section the data, and when we actually get our ducks in a row, we'll have to do some of these comparisons and start to.
Yeah, we'll just rename the section. That sounds less work.
Yeah, but not as interesting. Not as interesting for me. I don't know anyone else.
It's all about you. Let's face it. No one else is listening to this. We've been over this. Rewatchability, Carl. Where does it sit on the rewatchability scale?
Listen, because the story is so bright and breezy, I would agree with anyone that says this is a rewatchable film, even if I don't like it.
Absolutely
ambivalent. I think I've got to say I'm ambivalent to it now, haven't I?
Yeah, absolutely rewatchable. Yeah, I mean it's 2 hours long, and it doesn't feel 2 hours long for me either. Like it does breeze along, like it skips along with it. So yeah, definitely rewatchable. What's your best scene, Carl?
Oh yeah, so I liked the bit at Obi-Wan's house after he sort of rescued him. It's a bit of like a coming of age bit, right? He's talking to him about his dad, and then they share that moment when he gives him a beer. And then it's just like real sort of coming up. Yeah, when he goes to he's like, what's he say about him? He says like, un astuto guerrero. Entiendo que tú también has llegado a ser un excelente piloto. Like, he's a good pilot as well. Yeah? You know the scene I'm talking about, don't you? And then, era un buen amigo. Like, but he was a good friend. Lo que me recuerda, tengo algo para ti. I've got something for you. And he goes to... it looks beautiful as well. Like the icebox gives him. Yeah, you're looking at me strangely.
I'm so confused. What are you talking about?
It's like a real coming of age. They're going to share that because he might have had a beer before. No,
sure.
Look, I've got a video of it. Hang on.
This is going to be well for the audio listeners.
No, it's good. Oh shit! You know what's happened, don't you?
Well, go on.
I've watched the bloody Chilean version.
Oh, is that why you say it?
I've watched it. Look, it's here.
Cerveza cristal. Cerveza cristal.
What? No, cerveza cristal. No, it's Chilean. So, do you know about that?
No, that's the first time I've seen.
So this has been an internet sensation this past few weeks. So when they broadcast it in Chile in 2004, Cerveza Cristal spliced their adverts into the film before it went to an ad break. So anybody watching the film would see that, right? And then it'd cut to an ad break and do the rest of the ads, and then it'd come back and resume where the actual film picks up.
So they would see the advert first and then the actual scene part of it afterwards. Brilliant.
So anyway, that's not really my favourite scene.
And also I think we missed a trick on the recasting of just making it entirely Spanish.
Yeah. So my favourite scene, not too far away, and again this comes as a surprise to no one, is the cantina.
Yeah.
Because obviously, I like a good bar scene, but also I think there's some really good world building in that.
Yeah.
I think that's an excellent setting to sort of say, this is like a real breathing planet and there's all sorts of stuff going on here. And the music's great.
Yeah.
I love the music. So yeah, the cantina was yours.
The same. Mine is the cantina. So you get the complete overreaction in a little bar fight. Which I love. It's like, my friend doesn't like you. You'll be dead. Yeah. And then Obi-Wan's just like, fuck off.
Yeah.
Cuts his arm off. Just like, fucking mess with me, bitch.
Oh, it's a rough old bar, isn't it? It's a bit of a dive.
And everyone else just like...
Yeah. And after he blasts Greedo, sorry about the mess. Fucking hell, not again.
So I love that. And it's the introduction of Han Solo, which is pretty cool. Best quote, Carl. Where are we with best quote?
Cerveza Cristal. No?
I would love if that was actually how you'd watch that film and you thought it was genuinely just, isn't this how everyone consumes this film?
No. So my favourite quote actually isn't much better than that. My favourite quote is, if we can just avoid any more female advice, then maybe we can get out of it.
You're going to reuse that one?
Which is Hans Olo.
Yeah, Hans Olo, yeah.
He's trying to go away. No, I'm definitely not going to reuse that one. That sounds worse than upsetting Star Wars fans.
So it's too many quotes for me to pick my favourite one.
A lot of iconic ones, isn't it?
Yeah. But it seems you've given him so much jip, the old C-3PO. I'm gonna give it to him. Just where they're playing space chess or whatever you want to call it. And he just gets explained to him why Wookiees get upset.
Don't upset the Wookiees.
Yeah. So he's just like, you plan, let the Wookiee win. Yeah. Just that line, let the Wookiee win. Just let that go round your mouth a little bit.
Let the Wookiee win.
Oh, it's a satisfying, let the Wookiee win.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, it feels
I don't
really
enunciate
good.
as well as you, though, so that's how I say a lot of my sentences anyway.
Anyway, that's what I'm going for. Favourite character, is it even worth asking you?
It's got to be Mr. Olo, hasn't it?
Yes, Hans Olo. Mine's R2D2. Sorry, I don't care.
Yeah, well, no, look, at least you've not gone for that silly bitch C-3PO.
Look, he has a purpose, but no, R2D2 is fantastic for me.
Well, you say he has a purpose. You explained his purpose as the comic relief, because earlier on in my notes, before we got to this, I said he's such a little bitch in general, but just what is the point of C-3PO? Anyway, there we go.
Tearjerker, is it a tearjerker? If you can't
not for me, no.
No, not for me either. I don't think you don't get the tears from this one. Even looking at the corpse, the burnt corpses of your aunt and uncle.
They do not give us a chance to get emotional about them, do they?
No.
Barbecue.
Jerker, any gratuitous nudity?
No, not I wish. What, Jabba the Hutt?
Oh, maybe. Yeah, I'm pretty sure he is naked, actually.
Yeah, that's true, actually. Where is Bits?
Is
he dragging on the floor?
Thing,
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, I guess I suppose don't want to clean up after him.
No.
But no, definitely not. And then we move on to our top 3 / filmography section. So we already kind of touched on this, the George Lucas filmography, which when we suggested it, neither of us realised, oh yeah, we haven't actually seen any of his films that aren't Star Wars. I mean, you wouldn't have seen any of his films, literally none.
I had to bin it off.
So,
I mean, he doesn't even direct some of the Star Wars ones, right? Which I didn't know.
No. Well, yeah, the best ones, in fact.
Yeah, all right, I can see that on the strength of this.
Yeah, I mean, I extended this to go the ones that he was written or involved with.
Yeah, that didn't help me.
Basically, Indiana Jones, he did the story for.
Yeah.
But the story, you can kind of tell he's good at story, less at the actual dialogue and stuff. But in terms of thinking, world building, and doing all that stuff, that's kind of where his strength lays.
Yeah, very
Unfortunately, he didn't have the self-awareness to realise that and just stay away from the...
So there are some of them, aren't there? He's credited as story rather than writer.
Yeah.
So I wonder how that stacks up, whether the ones where he's writer are not so good.
I had a great idea for a film. Look, I've just written it down here. Oh, but back to pub now again. Brilliant. That's a story credit, is it? Great. What's this say?
Yeah, but maybe the story credit is where somebody's been able to turn it into something a bit better.
Yeah, I think that's better. Yeah, they've basically taken his turd and polished it. Yeah. So, apart from George Lucas filmography, top 3 films that are set in space.
Oh, yeah.
Have you got 3?
I've got 3. It was difficult,
It was tricky. There's a lot of films set in space.
Well, it was difficult for me for a different reason.
You don't like films set in space?
I generally know, and I just haven't watched a lot of them as well. That's the other thing. Yeah. So, I've got a list, and I don't like a good chunk of them. And then
Can I guess what your number 1 is?
Yeah.
Is Interstellar on there?
It's Interstellar, right? And this is a measure of how much I don't really like space films, because Interstellar is quite low down my list of Christopher Nolan films. I do not like that film as much as
we need to rewatch it as well, because
as much as the normal Nolan fan.
Yeah, I rated it quite highly, but then like looking back, it doesn't. It's not one of those that I think I've literally seen it once at the cinema.
Yeah,
I think I do fancy watching it again.
That was me. So I haven't watched it in the Letterboxd era. But I remember watching it and thinking, oh, wow, I love it. But like you've just said, when I'm doing this list, I'm thinking, it's all right. And we discussed Nolan's filmography the other week. I'm like, it's all right. Yeah. So that's on my list, but it's not a great indictment of my list. The other 2 I had were Moon.
Oh, yeah.
Sam Rockwell.
Yeah.
There's some interesting ideas played with there. And then Event Horizon, which I just kind of like the sort of the mystery, thrillery type vibe to it.
You've missed out one here, Carl.
Oh, go on.
Wall-E.
Now, yes. Saw it once and keep meaning to rewatch it because everybody says it's actually got a real commentary to it.
It's great. I think it's one of my
I've just not got around to it yet.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, it's probably one of my favourite Pixar.
But yeah, only saw it as when it came out, which was like 2008 or something.
Yeah, so there was a clear top two. So Wall-E, Empire Strikes Back, as in the film after this one.
And that's the best one, is it? Is that the most commonly held?
Yeah, it's commonly seen as the best one. And when you watch it, I think you'll see
things have moved on a little bit.
Yeah, I think you'll see the kind of difference in the complexity, but not like overly complex. But it's definitely just less of a straightforward, simple film. And then the third one, I had Interstellar down there, but for those reasons that we just talked about, I'm not going to pick that just because I don't know, it doesn't sit as in that memory. I also had Gravity as a possible third one. Again, only seen it once. Really liked it when I saw it at the cinema. Would that translate?
I've not seen it, and it looks incredibly boring, which is why I've not never saw it out.
And the other one, which I know you have seen, and I've rated it very high.
I knew you'd put this one on your list.
Ad Astra.
No, I can't put Ad Astra on my list because it's a big steaming pile of meh.
It could be what we talk about down the line. Who knows? Because I did really enjoy it when I watched it.
Yeah.
But who knows? If I watch it more with a critical eye, maybe less so.
Well, we could definitely do that one because I think I would say I'm ambivalent about that one. So
I think Gravity is actually my real number 3 there. But again, I don't think I'm uncomfortable putting films I've not seen more than once on these lists, or not seen recently as well.
Yeah.
But there you go. You want to do Harrison Ford films?
Well, a little segue. You've said uncomfortable doing your list where putting films on your list that you haven't seen recently, you've only seen once, and that was my problem with Harrison Ford because Indiana Jones aside, which I quite like, I've rewatched, I quite like, not loads, they're flawed, but they're fine. I've seen the Jack Ryan films where I think he's not as good as Baldwin was. They're fine, but after that, I'm like struggling. I'm like, well, what else have I seen him in? Like K-19, The Widowmaker. I know that I like that film, but it's been ages since I've watched it. I can't remember how much of a central figure he is. I don't know if he's any good in it. So I haven't got a list for similar reasons. I don't know that I know enough recently to pull one together.
So I've cheated because I've got Empire Strikes Back as on this list as well. But I've put The Fugitive, right? Again, not one I've seen in a very long time.
Yeah,
but it's one of those that kind of stuck with me when I've seen it years and years ago, where I can still have that vivid feeling of being very enthralled and engaged with it. And then the other one was Blade Runner 2049.
It's the new one, isn't it?
It's the newer one, yeah, which I much prefer to the original, which is probably sacrilege to the movie geeks out there. So
do you know
apologies,
what the Harrogate Everyman cinema put on the outside of their sort of billboard, if you like, when that was on?
No.
Obviously, it said Blade Runner 2049, and underneath they put, they didn't ruin it.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
Well, sometimes that's all you need from a sequel.
Yeah, haven't seen any of them.
Well, good. You've got some homework to do, mate. I'll be honest.
Yeah,
there's a lot of films you need to watch.
There's some stuff that's a bit higher than these, I think.
Quite possibly.
Yeah.
We'll see. We'll have a Harrison Ford sesh at some point and rewatch. All right, you got anything else for us, Carl?
No.
All right, well, that's all we've got then. If we moved the needle for you, or even if we didn't, please do get in touch with us by email at hello@mtnpod.com. Our Twitter and Instagram is mtnmoviepod, and you can find our page on Facebook and TikTok at movie.the.needle. All the details can be found in the show description. So from me and Carl, it's goodbye.
Goodbye.
I'm going to go tuck into some noodles. I am starving. But I do seem to have misplaced my chopsticks. So I guess I'll just have to use the familiar alternative cutlery.
Hey.
Goodbye.
Cerveza cristal.